Hello everyone, welcome to another session of Code with Krishnendu. So in this session we will learn how we can perform couple of functionality with Gmail API along with Node.js. So let's get started. So the very first, in terms of accessing the Google APIs, we need to set up few configurations so that we can get the access on the Google APIs. In our case that is Gmail API, and then we can perform the operations whatever we wanted to do. So let's first document those steps and gradually we will proceed. So first the step one can be, we need to create a Google Cloud project first. Second step going to be, we need to enable the API. So obviously for our case, it can be a Gmail API, right? So similarly, say for example, I wanted to access any other Google Cloud based API, say Google Sheet or any other API. So whatever the APIs we need to enable that, right? Then step three going to be, we need to configure OAuth consent. Okay, so as we know that OAuth is a type of authentication, so obviously those APIs are not going to be a public API, so we need to create or the OAuth first. And finally the step 4 is, we need to create the access credentials. Okay, so these are the four basic and major steps which you need to follow in terms of accessing the Gmail API, right? So let's move further ahead and let's see that how exactly this Gmail API is going to work on. Okay, sorry for that. So just let me remove it. Or yeah, so yes. So say for example, this is an user. So just okay, my drawing is not that real good, just bear with me. So say for example, this is one of the user. I'm just trying to draw it very quickly, right? And that user is actually wants to access the Gmail API. So let me create one box here and say for example, this is the project that we are going to create on Google Cloud. Okay, so let's say I'm just writing, just identifying, for identified I'm writing that this is my Google Workspace, right? This is my Google Workspace, on which Google Workspace means where we're gonna have our specific project to be created. Okay, let's say under the workspace I have a project called Gmail Playground, right? So this is the playground. Now folks, what we can understand is this project can be treated as an interface, okay, or more often it also been called as app, right? So say for example, whenever we are trying to handle such kind of operations, especially this type of APIs which are actually hosted or with Google Cloud or on Google Cloud. So there one interface is required which can actually make a bridge between the client and actual the APIs, like actually the server and the other things, like how it can be communicated. Okay, so this project is something which can act as an interface between your code base, or let's say your code base or logic, whatever you gonna write, and with the Gmail API. For our case, it's a Gmail API or Google Cloud. Okay, and to authenticate that, so obviously these things are not like anyone can come and access it, right? It shouldn't be the case. So that's the reason we may require these authentications. So let's say I'm just writing here that we need credentials, and moreover that a token also we may require. So I'm just making it a bit larger. Yeah. So what it gonna do is like, first it will try to authenticate that okay, whatever the user that wanted to access the specific Google APIs or Google Cloud APIs, that user should have a proper authentication already been generated and created, right? And based on that, finally we'll be able to connect with our specific applications or the project whatever we're gonna create on our Google Workspace or Google Cloud. And finally whatever the APIs we have been mapped, right? Say for example, for our case it would be like Gmail API, right? So if I just try to write here, so for our case it can be like Gmail API. Okay, so this Gmail API, which basically going to linked through our Gmail Playground project or app, with that specific interface we can make a communications, and finally whatever the operations we wanted to perform we can do it, right? Like get the list of emails, or probably the sending some emails, right? Or probably if you see the Google Gmail inbox, so there are a couple of labels are there, right? Like your inbox is a label, then update is a label, promotions is a label, social is a label. So those list of labels also we can actually fetch, right? So these kind of operations we can actually perform. So this is the whole picture, a very basic and very straightforward picture that what exactly we need to configure in terms of accessing the Gmail API, right? Now if I just go back to this specific documentation, if you see, so this is the, if you see this specific URL, right? So this is the very like informative page that Google is already been created. That's the workspace guide and Google Cloud Console, and it's already saying like how exactly we can create a Google project. It's a step by step, steps are already been mentioned over here, right? So at the very first step we will go with this, that Google Cloud Console, and here it is saying like go to create project. So I'm just launching it in another tab. So once I have clicked on this button, then you can see that this specific Google sign in page actually appeared, and here I need to enter the specific email address on which I wanted to create the project. So this is my email address and the password I'm just entering, right? So once the login has been successful, you can see that finally I am here. Finally I am in the Google Cloud, right? And it is basically asking me to create a project. Okay, so here we need to define the project. So I'm just writing like Gmail Playground is my project. So while specifying the project name, just be sure that you are not providing or not putting any underscore or something like this, because if you do so, this kind of error could come. So just be simple, like you can just like maintain this type of format. Okay, and here organizations, as this is kind of a learning purpose currently we are using, so it's not required. No such organization can be selected. We can directly click on create, right? So once we have clicked on the create project, you can see that our project is started creating. And once the project is created, this is the drop down that currently you can see that Gmail Playground, whatever project we have created, that is already been displayed. And this type of page we can see. Okay, now get back to the same page. Let's see what is the other steps and basically saying. So project name, so this step we already have done. Now in the location, click on the browse display potential location of your page. Yeah, so these steps are already been done. Now second step, if you remember, so first step whatever we have written, that is already done. So this is done, correct? The second step that we need to follow, that is enable the API. So for our case it will be Gmail API. So again I'm going back to here in this documentation, and if you come to this part, that is the enable Google Workspace API, right? So this is the URL, So if you come to this specific page, so this page basically talks about like how we can select such API which you wanted to link with your specific project, and then gradually we can enable the specific API with our project or interface or app, right? So it is saying like go to Google Cloud Console, then menu, click on these three lines, more products and Google Workspace product library. Okay, so I'm coming to this part, and then more products. If you see at the below, right, and if you scroll down, so here you have the options called API service, and more options are there, right? So from this, what is the option we need to select? Let's find it one more time. Product library. Okay, so if I just try to find it out, where is my product library? So billing, and then this is the store data storage, and if I keep scroll down, yeah, so if you see this, right, so this is the option called Google Workspace. So first we clicked on the more products, then Google Workspace. I'm just clicking on this pin button so that it can be like pinned option, and finally from here we need to select the option called product library. So once you clicked on this product library, so product library is nothing but a specific area where it can show you that what are the products of Google that is being hosted on the Google Cloud, and we can take the access of it. So if I just scroll down, if you see that Gmail is already been populated, and all the Google other products are also been displaying here. Moreover, you can also search from here like Gmail. If I just type and press enter, so it can show you that whatever the Gmail API and API or other things that we are looking for, right? So this is another options. Anyways, I'm just going to the same page and clicking on the Gmail API tiles, and now if you see that this screen appeared, and finally we can actually click on this enabled button. So once you click on this enable button, if you see that my project is selected as a Gmail playground, and what is now it is doing is like it is basically mapping the Gmail API with my specific project, whatever I have created, that is the Gmail playground. So right now under this Gmail playground, whatever the project we have created, you can see this is the option that we can see right now. So Gmail API is already mapped. But as we have said, like, so currently the second step is also been completed, right? So this is the second step. Now we need to go with configure of OAuth consent, and finally need to create the access credential, because that is important. So again, if I come back to here and let me open one more tab, which is called configure OAuth consent. So this is the URL. Again, you can see that. So folks, this all the pages are already been documented and provided by Google Developers Guide itself. So now it is saying like configure OAuth consent. So in Google Cloud Console, we need to click on APIs and services and need to go to the OAuth consent screen. All right. So let's get back to our page. Click on here, API and services. I can see, and I can see this option called OAuth consent screen. So let's click on this. So once I have clicked on this, I can see that this type of like options that I need to specify that what could be my user type, whether it's an internal or external. So internal is saying only available to users within your organization. Do not need to submit your app for verification. So what is the difference here, folks? Like if we go with internal, so what can happen, like whatever the organization we probably selected at the first, right, because we haven't select for our case, but if we select, then what we can do is we can select the internal. So for that case, what will happen, like if we go ahead with the OAuth consent and finally ask like Google that okay, we wanted to access this specific app for our own purpose, right? So we do not need to submit the specific application for verification or testing, right? For approval, like final phase of approval. But if it is an external, then we need to go ahead and we need to submit the app for the further test, right? So that information is already been written over here. So if you try to click on this internal, we cannot select it because this is disabled, I can say, and the information showing is like, because you are not a Google Workspace user. So what we need to do is we can select on the external and click on the create. Now once you clicked on the create button, so these are the steps we need to complete finally. So finally we need to write the app information. So some app name, then user support email. So app name we can just write like Gmail, uh, Gmail playground app. Let's say this is my app name, Gmail playground app. Okay, and now we need to provide one user support email. So I'm just keeping the same email ID whatever I already had, right? The same user through which I have logged in here. Now here the app logo, so whatever, say for example we are trying to create any mobile app or something, so that logo we can add it here. If we have any app domain, so that thing we can actually specify here, right? And finally developer contact information. So this email address are for Google to notify any. So let's say the developer contact information also, I just wanted to keep the same email, which is this one. Okay, and finally I'm clicking on the save and continue. So once I have clicked on the save and continue, now here you can see that scopes are express permission. So if I just click on it, so here what you can see, like it is basically asking for multiple scope, right? That what type of scope that you wanted to add with your specific Google like Google API or Google Workspace, whatever the project that we have created. So currently we can just keep it as it is, because going forward when we try to link this app with our specific project, there we can also define the scope. So I'm just going ahead and clicking on the save and continue. Now here folks, we need to add one user for test. So what is this? If you remember, like we have selected external. So as we have selected external, so that's the reason we need to specify the test user. The purpose of test user is, while publishing the status is set to testing, only test user able to access the app. Okay, so that's the reason we need to add one user over here. So for the purpose, I'm just adding the same user whatever I have, and right now you can see that the user is already been added. Clicking on the save and continue, and finally here is my specific summary that you can see, right? So all those things are already been linked up, right? And finally I'm going back to the dashboard. So now my Gmail app is done and all the users and all those things is already been created. So our this step is already been done, which is configure the OAuth consent. Now the final step, that is called create the access credential. This is also important. So to do that, I'm coming to this page, which is this specific URL, and what it is saying, that we can actually generate this credential like this. So we need to again click on these three lines, APIs and service and credentials. If I go back, click on here, then here, API and services, then credentials. If I do so, then this page finally appeared, right? Where I can see that create credential one button is there, right? So let's follow the steps. So next we need to do is like click on the create credentials and API key. All right. So let's click on the create credentials and go for the API key. So once you click on the API key, folks, what it will do is it will try to generate the API key for your specific account, specific project. And it is recommended that you can actually take it as a copy for the time being. You can get it later on as well, but I'm just copied it. and just keeping it in some other place for further reference, right? So now this is done, and let's see what else. So now we can copy, that is done. Click restricted key, update advanced, and for your API key, all right. And web application, okay, all right. So here you can see that couple of things, right? Click on create credentials. So one is like API key that we have already generated, right? But as we already set up this OAuth consent, so what we can do is we can go for the OAuth client ID creational as well. So to do that, we can create on this here, and now we are going to create the OAuth client ID as well, because finally once we try to communicate through our specific code base, that is the Node.js based scripting, then this type of OAuth client ID can help us, right? So if I click on this, so it is asking for what type of application, so I am just selecting web application, and the name is like, it can be like as it is, no problem. And authorized javascript origin, that is fine, redirect URLs. So here what I can do is uh, I have one redirect URL. So let's say, okay, so here authorized JavaScript origin, that is fine, for use with request from web server. So that is also for the time being, let's keep it as it is. Click on the create. So you can see that these are the information that we have got, right? So that is, this is my client ID, this is my client secret, and this is the date, and this is recommended that we can actually click on the download JSON. So what it will do is it will basically download a specific JSON which can contain all the details whatever you can see here. So because this JSON is very much required going forward, it can help us. Okay, so just keep this information with you, and just click on the OK, and finally our actual all the steps are actually done. Now here one thing is like publishing status. So currently it is saying is like testing. So folks, what will happen, like going forward, if you try to communicate with your specific project from some external source, like say some script language or like any app that you are building, and your if your publishing status is keep on testing, then you won't be able to communicate. So for that you need to click on the publish, and then finally confirm. And if your projects or publishing status turns into in production, that means your app is now ready to use, right? So these are the our, we already achieved the final step as well, right? So this is how we can actually create the Google project. We can link a specific API with our created project, and finally we can generate the access token, right? So now the next step going to be write the specific code with the help of certain Node.js based libraries and try to communicate with our Gmail API, right? Okay. So now we are going to create the specific logic through which we can communicate with our Gmail API, whatever we have already been created in the Google Workspace cloud. So to do that, first I have already created one project folder called demo, and we need to initialize the dependency file, that is the package.json file, right? So that we can install all the required dependencies. To do that, I'm writing command like npm init, and it will start initializing the project. So it is saying like the package name is demo, so I'm keeping it as it is, version as it is, description is nothing, entry point is alright, test command, git repository, author can be the name of mine, license is as it is, and finally I'm just saying is this okay, yes, right? So currently you can see that one package.json file is already been created, and now we need to add the dependencies within. So in terms of adding the dependencies, we actually need at least two major dependencies in terms of like communicate between the Google APIs. One is Google API. So first dependency, we can go to the npm site, and here we can just search for the Google API and hit enter. So you can see that this is the specific API that we need. So we can just copy the specific command, and we can go back to our specific workspace right here. I'm just clearing this up and just hit enter. So it will download the required dependency with the latest version, whatever it is. And the second dependency we also need, that is Google Cloud / local auth. That is also we are going to be downloaded. Right. So this has already been added. As we can see that this is the dependency that is added. And second one, the dependency that we are looking for, that is something called Google Cloud / yeah, local auth. This is the one. I'm also taking this one. So this is actually helping us to communicate with the Google Cloud, especially for the authentication. So I'm also adding this specific dependency with my project. Alright, so we are all set as part of the dependencies that we can see, and now we can see that right now we have two folder that is already been created. One is node modules package log.json, right? So here just to be segregated, probably we can create one folder called services. And also, if you remember, right, so whatever the credential file we have downloaded, right, the JSON file, that is required in terms of accessing or writing the specific code and accessing the specific Google API, right? So just to manage that also, I'm going to create one more, not here, probably in the root folder itself. So let me just collapse this, one more package, and this name I can see like credentials, something like this, right? So here we're gonna put our specific credential file, right? So here I'm just creating one file called credentials.json, right? That is the file that we are having. So we're gonna put the credential details over here, and within this specific service, we can create a specific JavaScript file, and the name that we can put is like Google API, Google API auth service.js. Okay, so here we are going to write the specific code which can actually help us to communicate or generate the authentications, like author of the token, basically whatever we are going to be required for that. So at the very first steps, we need to call out couple of things which we may require going forward. So first, we are going to call out the file system, because we are going to like handle couple of files and all from the workspace. So fs, and we are going to write is like require, and we need the module called file system, that is fs, and the specific promise version we just wanted to call, so that our code can be like synchronized to handle the asynchronous behavior. Okay, second thing that we need, that is something called path, and here also we are going to call the path library, which is again the native one. Third thing that we may require, that is like const process, because we are going to handle, or we are going to call a couple of files and all, so that's the reason. So again, it is also a native one, so process, and then we required the specific authenticate authenticate library from our Google Cloud Local Auth. Okay, so from the Google Cloud Local Auth, we just need to have this. We then need to import this authenticate. Okay, so authenticate as a function, which is going to return a auth client as a promise. So this is something we are going to be required. And finally, we need to have Google package as well, and that can be imported from Google APIs. And saving it. Okay, so these are the like major things that we may require, so that going forward we can, with the help of this, we can actually like generate the auth token with the help of our specified credentials. And finally we can also communicate with the Gmail APIs, the cloud APIs. Okay, so now the first thing about, like, once our import part is done, now the first thing that we need to define our scope. If you remember, while creating the specific project, we had a area or segment where we need to define the specify the scope. Scope means whatever the project that we have created, like what exactly the access that we are giving to it, right? So currently, say for example, our requirement is to get the email list labels and send the email, right? So to achieve these two things, we need to define two scopes. Now if we are getting confused that, okay, from where we can actually identify that what are the scope that we can actually have as part of the Google Gmail API. So to know about more about it, so this is the link we can check out. And here if you scroll down, so here if you see that these are the scope, code has been provided and descriptions are already been provided. Let's take an example. Let's say this is one of the scope which is ends with gmail.send. So it is saying send message only, no read or modify privilege on mailbox. It's a sensitive means it's obviously it's read a proper authentication, otherwise like we won't be able to perform this activity, right? So this is something we are going to be like we are going to be map as part of the scope, because we are going to trigger one email. And if you see the second scope, that is called gmail.read only, so it is saying read all resources and then metadata, no write operation. So here we can actually write certain emails, we can compose email and send it, and here we can read the resources but we cannot like write or compose something. Okay, so very clearly specify the descriptions. So these two things we may require. Okay, so first I'm just copying this from here, going back to our code base. I'm just writing the step like define scopes. Okay, and here what we need to do is we just need to create a constant, maybe like this. And here what we can do is we can create an array, because it's a multiple scope we are going to define. So first scope can be this, and second scope can be gmail.send and terminator. Okay, so we are fine with this until this part, we're defining the scope. Now the next step going to be, right, to handle our token and credential, right? So what you can do, what I can do is like fetch and store token from files. Okay, so first we need to, so here we can just define the path of the token file, because what is the plan is here we have created one file called credential, right? And here we're gonna put whatever the credential that we have got from our specific workspace, the Google workspace, that we will paste after some time. But the thing is like, the idea is like, once we are going to generate our specific authentication, right? So one token going to be generated, and token is like dynamic in nature. It's going to have some lifetime, right? So one token, it's not like always lifetime, like it can be exist. So it should be have some lifespan timing. So once it is expired, so what our expectation is like, token file can be generated by itself we do not just need to always generate the token in terms of running our project. Okay, so that is why we need to specify the path to tell the code that, hey, if token change and we are going to generate the token one more time, then this is the path you can put the token file, token.json file, and this is the path from where you can read out the credential file, because to generate the token we need the credentials. Okay, so that is the reason what we can do is we can write something like token path. Okay, and here we need to take the help of path and then join, because we are just trying to read out our specific workspace folder. Process dot cwd. Okay, and then comma, we just wanted to specify our specific location of this credential.json. so this is basically a credential.json and as well as a token. So currently we do not have any file called token.json, but it gonna be generated. So where it should generate, that path we are going to provide here. Okay, so we can say that folder we have, that is called credentials slash in the name of token.json, our JSON file should be generated and stored. Then the next thing that we need to identify, that is called credentials underscore path, right? Similarly, we can write path dot, it should be like join, and then process.cwd, and the similar way we can just probably copy this and paste it over here, because the location is same, only the name going to be changed, that is credentials.json, saving it. Okay, so our fetching the path of credential file and stored path of token file is also been defined now. Okay, the next part is like to define certain methods. So that at the very first, what method we can write is like, the first we will check if our token or saved credentials, whatever the credentials we are going to save and whatever the token we are going to fetch to access the other app, right? If the token file is already available, then we do not need to generate the token file one more time, right? So the thing is like, if my token file is token.json is already available, that means my token is already there. So we do not need to just again and again make the call through the API and generate the token. We can reuse the token. So that checkpoint, to check that, we can write one function. So we can write one. So here I'm in this step, I'm defining that read previously authorized credentials from saved file. That means if it is already exist, then read the specific credential from there. Okay, so to do that, we are going to create one async function. Okay, and the name can be, we can put like something like load saved credentials if exists. Okay, so this is something, one method that we are going to write, that load the credentials if it is already exist. Okay, we can define one try catch over here just to handle any specific error if we have. Okay, and if it is error found, then we can simply return a null, and if there is no such thing happened, then we can say that const content equal to await file system dot read file. Which file we are going to read? That is the token path file, right? If it is already exists, then here it will come, right? the concept is like, I hope like it is clear, right? So concept is like, if token is there, if token is already present, then this block going to be executed, or obviously if it is not been found, then it will come to the catch block and it will return the null value. Then we need to handle it, like then obviously need to generate a new token file and all. We will see that gradually, right? So first content we gonna fetch, say for example token file is already present. Now the next part is like credentials. Okay, so credentials also, as we need that. So credentials means, okay, say for example we have the already token generated. Now we need to like read that, like we already read that file as well. Now we need to have the content of the file. We need to parse it so that whatever the value the token file going to consider, we can access it, right? So say if that is already been stored in the form of like string, then that needs to be converted into the JSON. So to do that, we can parse the content into JSON, right? So that it would be easier for us to fetch the values. Now finally, if this operation is succeeded, then we can do google.auth from JSON, and here we need to pass the credentials. Okay, so this is the predefined library, like whatever we have already been imported. So what this will do is it will automatically take care of this part, like whatever the token that we have been fetched and then converted into JSON object, and then we are passing. It can read it out. It can actually map the specified or required API and finally perform the authentication, right? So this is one of the useful method that we have already written. Now we need to go for the second type of method. So this method is like save credentials, right? So now the next method that, or next function that we need to create, that is like, say for example our whatever the credential file that we have created, credentials.json, so that is also required, correct? Because without having the credential, ultimately we cannot just generate the token file, right? First method is going to handle if our token file is already present, then convert it to JSON object, and then finally perform the specific operations with the help of google.auth. But if our credentials not going to be do that, then how we can access it, right? So next method whatever we are going to create, that is something we need to again create one async function, and this time the specific method we can say like save credentials. Okay, save credentials. Now that means, like say for example our token file is not there, so we need to like regenerate the token file, right? So for that we need to call the specific API which can authenticate and then finally return the token. So that operation we are going to do it. Okay, so here also first again the same type of thing. So here also we can create a content which can give us the specific reference of our credential path, right? Credential path. So that is this file, whatever the details we are going to save from, save it here. And after that, what we can do is we can actually fetch the values from here. Okay, so we can say for example a key is one of the constant that we have created, and again we are basically converting the specific content into JSON object, so it can be like content. And now here, to go ahead with the further step folks, we need to check out our specific credential file. Now this is important. Okay, so if you see that whatever the credential file that I had, I already take it in the postman body so that it can be like formatted and beautified and we can understand. So now if you see carefully, and you can also open the specific credential file whatever you probably have downloaded. So this is the JSON file that we are going to get. Okay, and here if you see that that this specific details is actually like referred by one JSON object which is called web. Okay, so if we converted this specific content into JSON, now we need to call out, we need to parse the JSON with the help of web object, right? So that is something we need to keep it our mind, right? So now if I go back to the code base, right, and here, so keys is nothing but we already parse the JSON and save it in the one type of constant variable or constant that is called keys. Now key, say for example, one more constant we have created, and we are writing that keys, whatever the converted or JSON object that we have stored within this, and we already have seen from our postman that that can be referred with a parent JSON object called web. So that value we are trying to get, so it can be like web, right? So through this parent JSON object web, we are trying to call out all the values and trying to save within the key. So while I was referring to Google Docs, so there one more condition that they have provided, that it may be possible that other than the web as a JSON primary or parent object, it can be like installed. Okay, so either you can get the all the details of your credentials with the reference of web, or it can also be installed, it probably for some cases, right? So we are not taking the chance, that's the reason we are also referring that either or. If web is found, then fine, we gonna store all the credential related details with the help with the reference of web itself. If not, then we are going to look for the install. These two are the probable keys, like probable parent JSON object that we can expect. Okay, so now as this part is done, now we need to create a payload so that we can perform an API operation in terms of generate the new token. Okay, so here the specific payload we need to convert it into the string. So JSON.stringify is the specific method, and here we are going to form the payload. So what are the details we need to perform, what like need to pass as a payload? So first we need to write like type, like what type of credential type, what is the credential type? So credential type can be authorized underscore user, authorized underscore user. Second attribute is like what is our client ID. So client ID, so it's not required actually. Okay, so this is something we will fetch with the help of our key. So what I can do is, so again I'm going back to the postman. So this is the client ID, our reference object. I can also copy it, so I can write dot client ID. Similarly, we just also need the client underscore secret. Okay, so I'm just keeping some space over here. So again going back to here, and here is your client secret. So dot client secret, and also one more attribute that is called refresh underscore token, and this time we need to pass the refresh token part. Okay, refresh token we need to pass. So it can be like client dot credentials dot refresh token. Okay, so these are the values that we need to pass as part of the payload: type, client ID, client secret, and refresh token, right? Because refresh token we need to pass in terms of get the token, the specific token. And finally, once we get this, once we generate the token, right, we generate the token, what we can do is we can perform an write operation, write file operation, Why to write the token? The same file, whatever we already defined, right? That is the token path, correct? So token path we just wanted to write. Which value we wanted to write? That is the payload. Okay. So this is the specific like safe credential function that we have created, where we are just trying to access, like if our token is not already there, then what we can do is we can generate and finally like fetch the specific details from our generated uh, like authorization client, and finally we can capture and store it on the payload, and whatever the details we gonna get, that is our type, client id, client secret, and refresh token. Those details we can write into the file called token path, which is going to be created automatically in the name, like with the name called token.json, right? So this is one, like this method is something like if our credential is or token is not already present, then this method going to help us to generate the token file. Now the last and final method which is actually help us to generate the token. Okay, so the save credential is not the method which can generate the token. It can write the token, write and generate the token file. To generate the token file, token has to be like already generated, and then it can be write into the file, right? So finally, one more method that we can actually create, and this method can, the name of this method can be like authorize. This is the main method. Okay, and this method is going to help to actually trigger the specific API and then generate the token and supply it. Okay, so here we're gonna create one variable called client. Okay, client, and what it can do is so client is going to check if our specific token is already present or not. So if you remember, like we already have a method called here, which is load saved credentials if exist. This is something we're gonna call out from here, and if like token is already present, then we do not need to regenerate it again, to simply assign it to client as a variable. And to check that, we can actually put a condition over here that if client found, then what we can do is we can simply return the client, right? And if it is not found, let's say token is not at all generated, or probably it is a long day back we have generated the token, or maybe our scope, whatever we have defined, that is probably changed, and we need to generate a new token, then for that case we need to perform this operation. So I can say client equal to await authenticate. So authenticate is a function which basically comes from the auth to client, and this is something, folks, which is basically comes from this specific. If you see that, this is the authenticate function, right? We have already imported. So here is the actual use. Okay. So now we need to define that what exactly the things we need to do, because here now we are trying to actual access and generate the token, because that is not already present, or we need it in a fresh token we require. So now we need to write the scopes we need to specify whatever the scope that we already have defined on top of this. And also we need to write key, one more attribute. So this is the like standard attribute which is already there as part of the authenticate method, that is called scopes and key file path. And here we need to pass credential path. Okay, because without the help of credential, how we can generate the token? Okay, terminator. And finally we will check if client has the credential, because what will happen that if client is going to have the like generate the credentials, no, so credentials going to be an object that client going to be stored. If it is there, then what we can do is we can simply pass this client to our save credential method so that it can write it. So one thing we need to just write it here. So if we do so, right, because if you see that this client, we have been using this client also, right? So from where it could come? So it could come as a parameter. So we can write the client over here. Okay, so what will happen that if my authorize is succeeded and like there is no pre-generated token file present, then with the help of credential file and with the help of authenticate method, it can generate a new token and it can pass it to save credential method, and this method can generate a new token file, token.json file with this specified details. Okay, and if it is already present and that is something like not required to generate newly, so then it is very easy, it will check and return the similar client whatever you already have. We are not going to write it again and again, right? And finally we can return client and save. Okay, so this is what we have so far, the method, and these three methods can perform all the jobs, starting from the like all the job in the sense your authentication related jobs. Okay, so now what I can do is we can just try to make the call of it. So we can say authorize, this is the method that we have, and dot then console.log, and we can just say that client, and we can say maybe this one if we have so something like this. Okay, trying to call it up, and now what I can do is I can just copy this whatever I have my credentials, and I can open this file and I can put it over here, right? And now if I go to the terminal and just clearing the screen and try to get into the services folder, right? So services folder, and I can try, I can just try to run this file. Let's see how it works. So it is saying client is not defined. Okay, okay, let's see. It is not okay, fine. I can say that token generated, something like this. Again, clearing up and trying to enter. So let's try to rerun this project. So we can write like node google service.js and pressing the enter. So currently, okay, so let's try to execute this program and see. So we can execute like node and then google service or auth service.js, and once we press enter, you can see that our browser is actually launched, and it should give me the specific area where I can actually allow my app. But it is saying that 400 redirect URI mismatch. What could be the problem? Okay, so it is saying that you can't sign in into the app because it doesn't comply with this policy. Okay, all right. So folks, actually we need to make a small change over here. So if you remember, like while generating the access token, there is a portion where we need to add the redirect URI. And I remember like somehow we missed it, right? So let's add this. So this is the callback URL that I have actually added. So I'm going back to my browser, and here, so here we have this OAuth client already created, right? So here if you come, click on this edit icon, and here this is the option that we actually need to add, which somehow we skipped it initially. So add URI, and now if I click on the save, so it is already been saved, and let me just close it, try to re-execute our program. So I'm just clearing up and trying to re-execute. So this time again I could see the browser loaded, and this is the user account. So if I click on it, and it is as I need to click on the advanced in terms of giving the access. So go to Gmail Breakout app, click on it, and need to select all this option, click on continue. So once you click on continue, folks, if you get this screen that authentication successful, that means our connection with Gmail API through our specified account is now succeeded, right? And if you come back to the specific code base, so our code execution completed. Moreover, you can see that one new file called token.json is already generated. It was not there initially, isn't it? So if you open that, so whatever the payload that we have set, right, that type, client ID, client secret, and this refresh token going to be there. That means our connection is succeeded, our authentication is succeeded, and we all set to communicate with our further Gmail APIs in terms of getting all the details and sending emails, right? And one more thing is like this token.json, whatever the token we have got, correct? That is a refresh token and all. It will be like there. It will be there for certain time. And if we make some changes in the scope, or probably we just wanted to, in between, we just wanted to generate the new token, you can delete this token.json file and re-execute your code. All you need to do is one new browser window will open, and we need to re-authenticate there. Okay, and like that, finally we will be able to generate a new token file. Okay, so now we need to write the specific code base through which we can actually communicate with the actual Gmail account and get the details. Okay, so now so far we have already generated the auth token, we have generated the token.json, and that is sorted, right? So going forward, we're gonna create one more file over here under the service folder, and this time the service name can be like, it is going to be a specific Gmail API, so the name can be like Gmail API services, let's say .js, right? Okay, so now what is the plan is like, this time we are going to talk with the Gmail APIs. Okay, so to do that, first we need this Google to be imported, and we can write like, this should come from the Google APIs, right? So this should come from the Google APIs as an import, so that we can actually perform the specific Gmail APIs which comes within this Google APIs itself, right? Now, first what we can do is we can create a async function which can help us to get the labels. Okay, so let's say this is my email account that currently we are targeting to communicate with, and you can see that we have couple of labels over here, right? This is the labels, then chat is the label, important, drop, send, those are the labels. So currently what we are trying to do is we're gonna create one function, like programmatically we're gonna fetch whatever the labels that currently showing within this account called demo user 2306, right? So to handle this we need to write certain code. So let's start. So first we will start with like async function, and the method name that we will give, that is called, let's say, list of labels. Okay, and here we're gonna expect the authentication, because without having the authentication we cannot proceed ahead, right? Now we will supply it later on. So first we're gonna create one constant called, let's say, Gmail, and here how we can assign the specific Gmail attribute here. So Google import can help us to Google dot Gmail can come, and within this we need to specify the version. So version can be v1, and we also need to specify the authentication, whatever we're gonna get as part of the parameter or argument of this method or function. Okay, so this is done. Second thing that we need to capture the response. So let's say we have created one constant called res and one await gmail dot users dot labels dot, we are trying to fetch the list of labels. And what exactly we are going to do, so here we need to pass the user ID, and there is a by default keyword called me. So if you write the me keyword, so Gmail will automatically understand that currently with which account we are like making the connection with our auth. It will automatically take this part, so we do not need to specify any other user ID. It can be only me. Okay, it's a default thing, standard behavior of this API. Now, as we got the response, finally the list of labels, whatever the labels we have got, the list response we have saved within the constant called response. Now it is the time to check the data and fetch the data of the list, because that's actually saved in the object, and now we need to fetch the data out of it. Okay, so to do that we can create one more constant called labels, and here what we can do is res dot data dot labels. This is something we can write it here, and now we can check if my labels, if label is not generated, or if the label's length is equal to 0, then what we can do is we can say that console.log, some message we can print. Okay, so if something happened that my label is not at all generated, or probably the label whatever we have got the length is 0, then we can say that no labels are found, right? And we can simply return like nothing. We can simply exit from this condition. So we can say that return. And else if something happens that okay, we actually get the actual all the labels and our function is work as expected, so we can just print some message over here. So console.log, we can write labels, and after that we can run a for each loop on top of the labels. So labels dot for each, right? For each, and for each on which we need to perform the for each, so that can be referred with the label. And now one arrow function we can start, and here we can actually print this console.log and the labels, and finally we can just write so labels, and we just say for example we just wanted to print the specific label name. So name of the labels, right? And if we just wanted to format it a bit more, so we can just pass it like this. So I just wanted to pass it concatenate one hyphen, and I just wanted to say that whatever the label I gonna get, each and every label should start with one hyphen. Okay, one hyphen it should start, and finally I just wanted to return these labels. Okay, makes sense that how exactly we are calling up this we are creating the list of label function, async function, and we are trying to print through this function, right? So now as this function can be like a reusable function, so we just wanted to export it. So for that we can write module.export, right? Equal to, we can say that list of labels. And similarly Google API auth, so this service, from this also we need this authenticate or authorize method to be exported. So we can write like module.export authorize. This is the method that we can export it, right? And finally in the root folder, if we just wanted to create one file just to check it, maybe index.js, and from here what we can do is like we can simply call out the specific methods whatever we have. So we can say that const authorize equal to require, and we to call out the file. So it is there in my demo slash services slash this is the auth service. And similarly I have list of labels, and similar way I can simply import this file, but this time it could be like something else. So it should be under the services and the Gmail API service. Okay, and once we have this, what we can do is like we can simply call out the methods, right? So what I can do is I can simply create an async function, and function name I can write like test or testing, something like this. It should be like function and here we can call out with, let's say, let auth equal to await, because we have already defined the async, so we can call out the await, and it can be like authorize, right? Authorize and dot then, and if something happened then we would like to catch the error also, so console dot error, right? And once we get this, finally we wanted to call the list of labels, and we need this auth as a parameter, and then if something happened, so we just wanted to catch the error. Okay, so this is something we have got, and finally we can just call out this method called testing, and if something happens like so dot error. Okay, so this is something we have call out, and now if we just open a new terminal and we are under this demo, just checking, so we have this index outside itself, sorry, clear. Now we can write node and index.js, okay, it is saying unauthorized. So we are currently getting this error that is called 401 unauthorized. So what could be the reason? Let's try to find it out. So if we scroll up, we can see that login required, and it is saying something like cannot find the module called credential.json. So it looks like that whatever the path we have provided in the Google API auth service, somehow our code unable to find this file, and that's the reason credentials won't be able to generate, right? So let's see what is the problem. Okay, so I have put two dots over here, and if I try to troubleshoot, then it is referring content slash credentials. But if you see that after content, it should comes under the demo, that is the parent folder, and then credentials. So this is the problem. So what I can do is I can simply remove these two dots, saving it, again coming back to the terminal, trying to clear, and again executing this. Awesome. So now I can see that I'm actually able to get all the labels of my email box, right? So if I go back, so these are the labels that is there, and similarly we have got chat, sent, inbox, important, unread, started, category, social. So all these things we are actually getting, right? So this is how we can actually fetch the labels or list of labels of your specified Gmail account. Okay, now the second or the other things also we can actually perform. We can actually see, we can actually now try to send an email, okay, with the help of the same configuration. So now we can write one more function, so which can help us to send and new email. Okay, so in the current situation, we can see that currently we do not have anything in our inbox. Okay, and the expectation is like once we try to once we have developed the specific method or function, and once we execute that, if it works as expected, so we should be able to see some sort of message over here. Okay, so let's see how we can do it. So again, we can create an async function, and async function name can be like send email. Again, auth is common, this is required. Okay, send email auth is common. Similar type of configuration, again, like Gmail equal to the same type of thing, that is google dot gmail, and within this we need to pass version can be like v1 comma auth. This is important. After that, once we get this, now folks, we need to configure the message body. Okay, because obviously if we try to compose something, then that needs to be passed as part of the request body, right? So what we can do is we can actually provide one more parameter over here, and that can be like content. So content in the sense what exactly user wanted to send as part of the email. Okay, so here, and one more thing is like our Gmail, right? That is something like if you just pass this normal string or something, it may not be able to understand. So we need to convert it into base 64 encoded version, right? So to do that, what we can do is we can write const encoded message, maybe one constant we have created, and here we need to call out buffer dot from, we need to format that whatever the content we wanna get, dot to string, because that needs to be converted into base 64 encoded version. And now we are just write some replace mechanism. So I'm just copying from my other place because I'm unable to just remember it properly. So I can simply say that this is the replace format. Let's say if we have, because we are going to pass the content in the form of string. Okay, so if the string is content in is like slash, backslash, or something like this, or any hyphen which may not be required additionally, so we just wanted to make sure that we are replacing all those characters, right? So now once it is done, So now it is very simple. So const one more time, and res, again we're gonna save the response, right, as we have done in our previous code also. So here we need to write avid, again gmail dot user dot send dot user dot dot user dot messages dot send, and then we need to pass what, user id, again common me, so it will automatically understand, and request body, because we need to compose the email, and the type, the attribute under this request body should be raw, and what we need to pass is like, we need to pass our encoded message over here. Okay, encoded message we need to pass. Once this is done, we can simply, just to check whether our message is actually sent or not, we can say that res, whatever the res we have stored, dot data, and we can also return it for further use. So res dot data. Okay, very simple. Send email is the method, and it expect two parameters. One is authentication and one is content. This is the method implementation. So with the help of Google and Gmail part, we are processing it, we are mentioning the version, we are passing the auth, we are forming the content, converting it to base 64, and finally as a response we are segregating it, and then if the call has been made through this successfully, then we are expecting some data, right, as part of this, and then we are returning. So as the method count is now increasing, what we can do is we can just simply say that we can start a body over here. We can say list of labels, and then list of labels, and send email, send email can contain send email. Okay, and now if I go back to this, as we have the multiple methods to be exported, so we can put like this and say that send email over here, right? So now one thing that we need to configure, that is the message body. So that is something very important. Okay, so here what you can do is, after this auth, you can say that let message, and this is the thing folks, which is like completely a string body. So just for the purpose, what I can do is like, I can simply copy and paste this one. Okay, so I'm just changing this email address to my email address, that is demo user 2306 @gmail.com. Let me re-verify my email address. Yes, and the test email is something that I just wanted to send. Email content type can be text/html, and it should be cat set is utf-8, then some new line, and the message is like hello world, right? And once we are done with it, we can actually call out our send email method or function. We can pass the auth as well as the message, and finally we can say that if we got something, then we just wanted to print. Okay, so right now I'm just commenting out this list of level method or function, because we just wanted to check whether our send email function is actually working as expected or not. So I'm clearing it and putting up this one. So as you can see, I have got this message ID and the labels also. That means we can expect that our message is actually sent successfully. So let's verify by navigating our Gmail account. So if I come back here, try to refresh it. Yes, awesome. So we have got this specific email. This is the subject line. This is the user that we have actually configured, and this is the body that we are getting, right? So with this, we actually learned that how we can actually send the email with the help of Gmail API and specific function. In our like next implementation, what we will try to do is we will try to get the message, at least one of the very first message of our inbox. So far we have created a function to get the labels, send the email, and now it's time to read the message. Okay, that is something we will implement now. So now we're gonna create another function which can help us to fetch the latest message of our inbox. Okay, so let's see that. So again, we're gonna create one async function, and sorry, this should be like async, and we can say that get latest message. Okay, again, auth is something we are trying to get from the user, and now what we can do is we can actually write the same type of configuration whatever we have done so far. So again, const gmail equal to google dot gmail, in the body version it should be like v1, and then comma, and then auth we can pass, and then we can also say that so this is done, Gmail part is done. Now response, right? So const res equal to again await, and then the similar way that is called Gmail dot users dot messages dot, and this time we just wanted to fetch the list of the messages, so list, and we need to start the body. Okay, now we need to specify certain parameters over here. So one is obviously that is user ID, that is kind of a common for all of the functions. Second is the max result is something we wanted to define, because this method purpose is like we wanted to get the latest message only, the latest message of our inbox. That's the reason the max result we have said that the max result we would like to get from this function is only 1. Okay, now if you observe our same message response, right? So if you see that once message has been sent from the body, we are actually getting the ID. That means ID is very crucial in terms of identifying the message. Okay, so that's the reason we need to capture the message or latest message ID. So we can say that latest message ID. And how we can get the latest message ID? So like this we can get, so res, we can say res dot data. So in our send email we are saving the res dot data, right? So here we are writing res dot data, and then dot messages, so it's an array, so we are targeting to fetch the very first one, so that's the reason 0 and ID. Very simple, we have got it. And just to be ensure that we are actually getting the ID of the latest message, we are printing it. So we can say that this one, we can say that latest message ID is dollar, and then bracket, we can say that latest message ID. Okay, saving it. So until this point it is kind of like clear to us. Okay, so latest message ID is something that we have got, right? And now message ID though we received, now the we wanted to fetch the content of the message. Okay, so to do that what we need to do is we need to create one more const, and we can say that message content, say for example, equal to, again await function need to call. We need to call out the gmail dot user dot messages dot, instead of list we can call out get. Okay, because we wanted to get the content of the message, and this time we need to pass again two things. One is user id, second thing is message id. Here we need to pass the latest message id, whatever we have faced in the line number 45. Okay, so this part is also done. So once we have got this, we have got this specific message content, we can convert this, we can say that body, and we can convert this specific message content into the string. Okay, so we can say that json dot stringify and message content. So message content is a whole object that we could get, but let's say we just wanted to see the message body data only, right? So it would contain subject and all those things. So to do that, we need to like parse this entire object. So we can say dot data dot payload, okay, dot body and dot data. Okay, so by this we can actually get the content of the body, and finally if we try to console it, so what we can get, right? So this is something we have got, let's say. Okay, and now as our one more function has been increased, so we can just simply export it. So you can say that this is something we wanted to export, so one more function we can add it here, right? And this time we just wanted to comment out the sent email because that is already been checked. We just wanted to check one more method. So get latest message, which is expecting the auth, and dot catch for any certain error if we get so error, and terminator. And now if we just clear our terminal or console and just try to execute this, so if you see folks, this time the latest message id that we are getting, that is this one, and the body is something we are getting in this format. Okay, so it is not like a proper string format that we are getting. Now if we go back to the service and if we just try to re-understand this send email, if you see that in this send email method or function, we actually converted our content into the base 64 version. That means whatever the value you're gonna get, that is also in the format of base 64, and we need to convert it the human understanding format. Okay, so that's the reason we need to add one more line here to understand the message body, and we can say that let mail body equal to new buffer dot from, so we have stored this one, so body comma base 64 dot to string. Okay, once we have done it, if we just now try to log this mail body and also try to return it for further use, and now if we try to run our program, so what we could get, see, so we are getting the latest message id, we are getting the encoded message and as well as the decoded message, which is hello world, right? So that's what we have seen here, correct? So this is the only currently only message that we are actually having in our inbox, that is this one test email, and the content is hello world, and that's what we are getting after decoding as well, right? This is what we are getting. Okay, so this is the like this is all as part of this entire session. So if we just try to segregate what exactly we have learned from this session. So first we understood like how we can create a project on Google Cloud Workspace, how we can enable Gmail API, how we can generate the access token, how we can generate the Google authentication programmatically, how we can handle Gmail API functionalities, the basic kind of a basic functionalities like the list of labels we can get, how we can get the message body, and how we can send an email, right? So that's all as part of this session, and I hope you like it, and like you got benefited throughout this knowledge share, right? So thanks for watching.